Hey guys, it's David from Automotive Press. Guess what? I have a huge announcement, and that is the fact that I purchased 2025 Lexus GX 550 Overtrail Plus. That's right. I've been talking about buying the GX for a while now, but I finally got delivery just last week. So here we are, GX 550 Overtrail Plus, exactly the way I want it, with an incognito color, which is also the color I wanted. Initially, I wanted Nora Green, but after thinking about it, I always wanted the incognito color because it was part of the Lexus IS 500 launch edition color, and therefore I have a bit of an attachment to this color. And I'm super excited to be owning this and to be using this as a daily driver. And I want to tell you everything about the GX 550 Overtrail Plus as an owner, which will be a little bit different from just driving for a week as a press vehicle. But also there's part of me that have a little bit of regret, because this week I also happen to be driving the Nissan Armada Pro 4X, one of the best three-row SUVs in the market right now. And these two happen to be coinciding in the same week. And I gotta admit, even though I love the GX 550 Overtrail Plus, I love it more than the Land Cruiser, and it's the right choice for me. I have to admit, for about the same price, actually this is a little bit cheaper, this thing is impressive, and therefore I have just a bit of a buyer's remorse, because I could have bought the Armada Pro 4X for cheaper than my GX 550, and in many ways, it actually performs better and provides more value for money. So that's beside the point. For now, I'm gonna focus back on the GX 550 and tell you everything I like, everything I don't like about it as an owner, and also I'll reference back to the Armada Pro 4X just so that we can do a bit of comparison. So let me tell you all about my GX 550 Overtrail. Let's go. Welcome back. So here's my 2025 GX 550 Overtrail. You might wonder why I'm buying this after all. Well, there's a bit of a history behind how I ended up buying the GX, in a sense that I had a deposit about a year ago. But at that time I had the Land Cruiser and I was happy with it, so I didn't want to buy the GX. So I decided to push it out because I thought maybe I would just keep the Land Cruiser and not buy the GX. But over time, as you probably know, there were things I found out about the Land Cruiser that I'm not happy with, and therefore I decided to actually go ahead with the GX 550 Overtrail. But I wanted to wait to get the Overtrail Plus and also wait to get the right color, so I ended up waiting for a little bit. And it was kind of right timing, because then I had the Land Cruiser for about a year and it was time to change it for something a little bit better. So I traded in the Land Cruiser to buy the GX 550. I wish I could have kept both, but that's just not possible right now. But I'm super happy with the upgrade, because in so many ways the GX 550 is much better than Land Cruiser, even though the two, on paper at least, seem very similar or almost identical in some ways. But definitely GX is an improvement in many different ways, which I'll talk about that in a second here. So I'm super excited about owning the GX, but at the same time, driving the Armada Pro 4X reminded me how good and how much of a world-class vehicle this one is, to the point where I'm having, again, as I mentioned a little bit, a bit of a buyer's remorse, because I could have bought this for less money, and in many ways it outperforms my GX. It's bigger, it's roomier, and it's actually a really good bargain when you think about what you get with the Armada Pro 4X. But for now, of course, I'm very happy and I can't complain about the GX Overtrail, because it's a beautiful vehicle. It's fully loaded. Everything I wanted is in this vehicle. And what I'm going to do is give you 10 reasons why I'm very excited to be owning this Overtrail, starting with the fact that this really is the true Land Cruiser, in the sense that the Toyota version of the Land Cruiser is a bit of a compromise because of the engine, because of the fact that they downgraded somewhat to bring the price down as well. Whereas this one, I feel like it really is the honest to goodness, a real Land Cruiser, just with the Lexus nameplate and badge, partly because it's got the V6 engine, but also because it feels like a Land Cruiser. And so I really like the fact that this is the Land Cruiser, other than the difference in name between Toyota and Lexus. So that's my first reason. And the second reason is related to the first reason, which is the fact that this one has a twin-turbo 3.5-liter V6 engine. As you know, Land Cruiser has a 2.4-liter Turbo 4 with a hybrid. Lots of power, lots of torque with the Land Cruiser. But that powertrain feels out of place with the Land Cruiser nameplate. It's not super smooth. It doesn't feel all that refined. It feels raspy when you step on the gas. And even shifting up or down was never all that smooth in the Land Cruiser that I owned. Whereas in the GX Overtrail, because of the V6, because it's a twin turbo as well without hybrid, it just feels very natural, it's organic. almost feels like a small V8, and I should know that because we still own the 2023 Lexus GX 460 with a V8 engine, and this kind of mimics that feel. And so I'm very happy that it has a twin turbo V6 engine, and that's the way Land Cruiser should have come. They should have put the same engine in the Land Cruiser as a GX, and then that would have made sense. But of course they didn't make that choice for many different reasons. So I'm really happy that I have a GX with a twin turbo V6 engine. The third reason is the obvious one, and that is the fact that this is a true Lexus. Well, that might not mean a lot to some people, but for me, having owned both Toyota and Lexus models equally as much, there is definitely a difference in terms of service, in terms of warranty, quality of work at the dealership, and so forth. I get phenomenal service from Toyota as well, and Jim Pattison Toyota is the one that I deal with mostly, but also with Open Road Toyota. But with the Lexus, I deal exclusively with Jim Pattison Lexus in North Shore in North Vancouver here, and they have always treated me like a VIP, not just the sales, but also service. I mean, absolutely flawless service. Many thanks to my salesperson, AJ, who's probably the best salesperson I've ever dealt with, in the sense that he's honest, he's truthful, he's not playing any games with you. And so I keep buying cars from AJ at Jim Pattison Lexus, but also all the managers there are absolutely fantastic, including William and William's boss, Michael, as well. They're absolutely amazing team over there, and that's why I keep buying cars from them. But anyway, coming back to my third point, it's a Lexus, 1 year longer warranty, better service. They always guarantee a loaner for me, which is obviously another Lexus, and they treat me and other customers coming in the dealership like a VIP, and unfortunately you just don't get that with Toyota. So that's my third reason. My fourth reason is the fact that I really like the design of the Lexus GX 550, both outside and inside. I love the exterior design. Even though it shares so much of the components with Land Cruiser, this one has more of a modern design. It comes standard with off-road tires, whereas the Land Cruiser came with street tires, Michelin LTX, well, kind of off-road tires, but not really. Whereas this one comes with Open Country from Toyo, true all-terrain tires, and it just has that look. It doesn't have a rock rail on the side, so I might have to replace this with a real rock slider. But aside from that, in terms of a two-tone finish with the black and gray, black handles, and just the overall look and feel is excellent, especially the rear. I do admit though, the back end does look a lot like a Rivian. Sometimes I'll look at Rivian and say, hey, that looks like a GX 550 and vice versa. But overall, I love the exterior design. I'm curious what you guys think in terms of design for the outside GX compared to Land Cruiser. Also inside is not super overly luxurious, but it's very much business style. So let me take a look inside. So what about the inside? Well, it's not super fancy as I mentioned, but I do get the 14-inch display versus 12.3 in the Land Cruiser. I do get 12.3 inches of a digital display, same as a Land Cruiser, but I get a very subtle wood panels on the center console, a little bit of a green trims on the seat because this is an Overtrail, that's part of the signature design. And the seats feels a little bit more cushy, a little bit more supportive than Land Cruiser. And overall, I definitely do like the interior better. It feels upscale, it's more beautiful than Land Cruiser, because I always said the Land Cruiser is very functional, but it looks very plain and maybe even a little bit cheap looking. So inside and out, I love the GX design, and it's definitely an upgrade compared to my Land Cruiser I had. The fifth reason why I bought the Lexus GX 550 Overtrail Plus is the fact that it has an amazing level of NVH, noise, vibrations, and harshness. And just the level of refinement is 1 or 2 notch above the Land Cruiser I did own. It's just quieter. It feels smooth, it feels rich and expensive, and just the overall character and the refinement feel is definitely improved over a Land Cruiser. So that's a huge deal for me. And as I mentioned before in other videos as well, the 2025 GX seems to be even better than 2024 in the sense that they've tightened everything, they improved the overall NVH and also the manufacturing quality. And I really think that 2025 therefore is the best iteration so far. Unless of course they make more changes for 2026, which I don't believe will be happening. So yeah, the fifth reason is better NVH. The sixth reason is what I mentioned already, and that is the fact that this one has a twin turbo V6 compared to turbo 4 in the Land Cruiser, and therefore not only do you get better delivery and more smoothness, it's just overall a better performer. I noticed the steering feels a little bit better as well, a bit more feedback compared to Land Cruiser, which was very light and numb. But even though Lexus is supposed to be more luxurious, I actually think that this feels a bit sportier than the Land Cruiser, which surprised me. So handling is reasonably good for this big SUV. The feedback in terms of my steering is definitely better than my Land Cruiser. The overall performance and overall feel is better. In terms of cornering, it's about the same as Land Cruiser. Two are very similar. And of course, the two models share many features and components and the basic TNGA-F platform. So the difference is not super big. But for me, as I drive both back to back, I did notice the difference again in terms of NVH, but also just overall better performance. And I'm much happier with the GX, with the V6, with the better steering characteristic and overall improved NVH. Another thing about the Land Cruiser that I did own is the fact that it was a very early build. I think the VIN number was something like 968, so it was within the first 1,000 units of being built in Japan. So it was super early built, and therefore it has all kinds of little problems. Maybe not major problems, but first it had a rough shifting, downshifting or so. It would kind of clunk, and it's a common problem that it's been talked about in the forum. The brakes really squeal badly when you are trying to park the car, especially in reverse. Again, that problem was unique to that Land Cruiser as early build. It's not happening on my GX. Another point that's being talked about in the forum a lot, but also other minor stuff, like if you actually come around and look at the build quality of that Land Cruiser compared to this one. Even though Land Cruiser is also built in Tahara plant, same as GX, my specific Land Cruiser was built in Hamura plant just outside Tokyo. Therefore, I have to admit that maybe Tahara built ones are a little bit better. So for example, these moldings here in the Land Cruiser, if you remember my earlier videos, these things got tucked inside the window and it was kind of crinkled. But I can tell that they actually changed the design of the rubber, and therefore it doesn't disappear inside the window here. Also, the B-pillar looks better in terms of the actual coating. And overall, everything looks good. All this molding fits perfectly. I remember there were some plastic pieces that were a little bit loose in the Land Cruiser, some of these pieces here, but everything is solid. Like even here, there were a lot of gaps here in my Land Cruiser, but you can tell this one is a perfect fit. So I can tell that because this is a 2025 and not 2024, they made lots of what we call engineering changes or running changes, which are minor adjustment to the fit, to the parts, as well as the manufacturing process to improve the overall quality. And I can really tell the difference between 2024 and 2025 GX, but also between my 2024 Land Cruiser and this GX. It's just overall, it's a better build. And this one also feels much smoother in terms of transmission and powertrain delivery, which I have already talked about earlier. So overall, the quality is improved. I wasn't happy with the quality of that Land Cruiser, even though generally speaking, it was good. The paint job was nice. The body alignment was good as well. But it just felt a little bit cheap, and it felt a little bit like an early production or kind of pre-production type of quality. And it was because it was such an early build. So I'm really glad that I moved away from that and bought a more mature second-year version of the GX because it's definitely better built than the Land Cruiser I owned. By the way, I keep forgetting to reference back to Armada, but if you look at the build quality of the Armada, it's just as good as my Lexus GX, built in Japan, in southern Japan, which is a Kyushu factory, in terms of gap, in terms of paint quality. I mean, it's a first rate. It's basic Infinity quality model / Lexus level quality, and yet it's quite a bit cheaper than Lexus models. So it's a really amazing overall value for the Armada. But let's come back to my Lexus for a moment here. And basically you get more luxury features. So if you notice on Land Cruiser, this was all cheap plastic. This is actually like a glossy black, which looks beautiful. I'm kind of worried about scratching it, but obviously it's upgraded from Land Cruiser. Everything else also upgraded. Like I said before, even door handle is also glossy black. Even the power seat switches are also glossy black. You get nice scuff plate. This one actually lights up at night. And also the quality of the leather on the steering. And then you get lots of soft plastic around. Mark Levinson stereo, which by the way on this Overtrail Plus is absolutely excellent. It's a huge improvement from previous Mark Levinson in previous GX models. I think they actually really went out of their way to try to make this stereo system one of the best in the world. And I noticed a big difference between this and my Land Cruiser's JBL system, which should be pretty good, but there is a big difference. And I'm not talking about like 5%, 10% better. I would say the Mark Levinson system in this Overtrail Plus is 20-25% better sounding than Land Cruiser, which sounded good but not out of the ordinary, whereas this one is wow. Like you hear it and you say, okay, it was worth paying Overtrail Plus instead of Overtrail to get the Mark Levinson, so I'm really happy about that. So the overall upgrade in terms of features, in terms of quality and everything, makes it worthwhile to move to the GX versus the Land Cruiser. The ninth point is something I have to predict because we don't know for sure if what I'm predicting is going to happen, but I think the 3.5 liter V6 twin turbo will be more reliable than the 2.4 turbo hybrid in the Land Cruiser. Now, we won't know any of these details until a few years later on when we get some stats and some data, but generally speaking, I predict this V6 to be more reliable than the 2.4 turbo. It may not turn out to be that case, but that's why I'm betting on it, and therefore I'm really happy to get the V6, not just for performance enhancement, but I think overall it's going to last a long time. It is a proven engine, despite the fact that the earlier Tundra did have some problem with metal shaving in the engine. I still believe this is a really reliable powertrain. And just look at the manufacturing quality of this particular GX. You know what? It looks beautiful even under the hood. If you look at the Land Cruiser under the hood, it looks like a spaghetti mess. I don't know why they didn't put some cover on it or just make it look a little bit better, but it was eyesore looking at the Land Cruiser engine compartment. But this one, and also the Armada, also has a V6. It just looks amazing. The manufacturing quality, just overall design, looks great. But you did notice that Nissan, you put these paint marks to signal quality check, and they're kind of more random versus on the GX. Even the paint marks are perfect, like a nice stroke. It all lines up. You get these two dots here to signal again quality check and also to label some parts. Everything looks super tight. Everything is covered up. You can see the cover over this hose to make it look better. It's just incredible quality, and that's why I really do think this particular GX will be very reliable over a long time. The 10th and the last point in terms of why I bought the GX 550 Overtrail is the fact that I think this will have a really good resale value. Probably better than the Land Cruiser in the sense that there's a long waiting list for the Overtrail Plus and Overtrail, like something like 2-year waiting list still. And therefore the demand is going to stay high. People love the GX and so many people want to buy it because they do recognize that it is priced very close to the Land Cruiser, but it has a V6 and therefore people are really wanting the GX. Whereas the Land Cruiser, I feel like the resale value is already coming down because there's more and more people selling it, and I noticed that depreciation seems a little bit higher than second-hand 2024 GX that are also on sale. So I think the 10th reason is the fact that I believe in the long term, not only would this be more reliable than Land Cruiser with a 2.4, but also will probably have a better resale value, and that's a very important thing. And that might be the only reason why I bought the Lexus GX versus, let's say, a Nissan Armada, because for all intents and purposes, in terms of performance, ride, quality, as well as the overall feel, this one actually outperforms the GX in many ways, and definitely when you take the money into account, it's a better value because it's cheaper, but it feels like Infiniti/Lexus level, but it's priced like a normal Nissan SUV. So this is really in many ways a bargain, even though it is still a very expensive vehicle. But unfortunately, the resale value is poor on Nissan, especially Armada and even the Infiniti QX80, which is a similar model. Traditionally speaking, they depreciate quite a bit. Now that might change with a new model because these models are amazing and that will push up the resale value. But if I have to put my money on it, I think that the resale value will never be as good as the Lexus or Toyota. And that's why I still end up buying the GX 550 Overtrail. I think if I didn't take into account the resale value and I just want to buy it and keep it for the next 10 years, I would have bought the Armada Pro 4X over the GX Overtrail because it is a better car. It's also roomier and bigger, and it just offers better value. But when you take everything into account, resale value, overall quality, long-term reliability, and so forth, you still cannot beat Lexus or Toyota. And especially this particular GX Overtrail Plus is an amazing vehicle. You guys already know that I own a 2023 GX with a V8 engine. I'm keeping that, as you guys have suggested to me when I did a little poll earlier. So I'm keeping that, and I sold the Land Cruiser instead to buy the 2025 GX. So now I have a 23 GX and a 25 GX. Both are obviously different because the powertrain is different. But right now, this is my daily driver. So I hope this was helpful in terms of my announcement that I did purchase the GX after all. and some of the reasons why I bought this one. In fact, 10 specific reasons. But at the same time, I have just a bit of a buyer's remorse because Armada Pro 4X is so good and so amazing that I could have been very happy buying that as well. And so I'm kind of curious what you guys might end up doing if you're looking for this type of SUV. Would you buy the Lexus / Toyota models, or would you consider Armada or Infiniti QX80? Because those models are very competitive, and in many ways they are offering Lexus LX level of space and features and luxury at a GX / Land Cruiser pricing. So I think it's a lot to say about Nissan and how far they've come, but for now I'm happy with the GX. Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you can give me a thumbs up, that would be great. And if you haven't subscribed yet, would you kindly subscribe as well. Until next video, I'm signing off for now. Thank you so much.